If you're anything like me, you have struggled with self-sabotaging patterns. And in today's episode, we're going to dive into that in 5 steps to clear it all out, to really identify where you're going and to break through anything that's stopping you in the way.
Let's go.
What is up, beautiful humans? This is Dr. Dave Cahotis. I am on a mission to forge strong, heart-centered, and purpose-driven men. And this podcast is here to help you stop managing your problems and start breaking free of stress, limiting beliefs, and excuses that stop you from executing at your fullest potential, living with passion, and being the man you want to be. So let's go. Hey, what's going on, guys? I am Dr. Dave. This is the Unbreakable Man Podcast. And as I mentioned in the intro, today's episode is all about breaking through self-sabotage in 5 simple steps. These are the steps that I have identified as being like the catalyst for me to break through any self-sabotaging pattern. It allows me to stop, to anchor in where I'm going, to identify, to break through so that I can ultimately get the results I want. Now, here's the thing. Self-sabotaging patterns are not just a simple procrastination thing. It's a deep subconscious pattern that stops us from really achieving the goals and the results that we want. So if you're feeling stuck, what I want to do is I do want to mention what we got going on. If you're feeling completely like, dude, I need some support, you're going to get a lot out of this episode, but I highly recommend you check out the Unbreakable Man experience. That experience is unlike anything I've ever been a part of. I've been a part of this program now for, 5 years. I've been doing this kind of work, that specific program for 3. Every single one of the guys that has gone through that and finished, and I say that, I always say that like, and finished, because it's very challenging. I have had guys that are not able to finish, but that is by design. Every guy that has gone through that and finished has completely changed and transformed their life for the better. I've seen guys go from feeling completely broke, their relationships are falling apart, to this particular guy that I'm thinking about in my head is literally doing $50 million a year in his business. I've had other guys go from, just thinking about living their purpose to actually moving across the country and pursuing their life's dream in film and cinematography. Like, these are incredible things that that you want to do, but something's stopping you. And so if you're looking to really break through and really just level up in every single area of your life, then absolutely check out the Unbreakable Man experience. Our next one, depending on when you're listening to this, our next one is November 1st through the 3rd. And I'm going to tell you this, that is the last direct in, meaning after this next one, we are going to have it so that you got to go through the Unbreakable Leader program first in order to even get an invitation into the Unbreakable Man experience and all that it brings. So if you are thinking about it, if you've been on the fence and you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, now's the chance. Like, now is the chance, November 1st through the 3rd. Be sure to go to theunbreakableman.com and apply. So, okay, let's dive into today's podcast. And this is a banger. I know if you're like me, like I said, if you're like anything like me, you've gone through the ringer when it comes to self-sabotage. I was like the king of self-sabotage. And I was like, why am I constantly finding myself in these positions? And I would always get into this situation where I would work really hard. I would hustle. And then it was like I would self-sabotage my success. I would stop doing the things that was getting the results that I knew was getting the results. And I would hit burnout and I would just go down, and it would be like this feast and famine thing. So what I've done is I've gone through sort of a series of iterations of my own processes and distilled it down into 5 simple steps, 5 simple things that you can do, whether it's every day, every week, every month, so that you can identify what are these self-sabotaging patterns, and then how do you break through them. And like I mentioned before, they are ultimately subconscious patterns that dictate whether whether you know it or not. So like your subconscious patterns, your subconscious mind, the part of you that you are not aware of, that's why it's called subconscious, will get in the way of you taking action. So maybe you notice it in your relationship. You'll be getting results with your relationship with your wife, and you'll be like, man, this is really going well. And then all of a sudden, like, little things start to creep in, like you'll just start noticing like, oh, well, I'm working late this week, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. And it's like these little subconscious things start to creep in, or whether it's sales as an example, or money, as we'll just use money. It's like you'll be selling and then you'll stop. You'll be working really, really hard. You'll be selling and be like, man, like knocking on doors or whatever your business is. You're making sales calls. You're doing like all the marketing. You're doing all the things that are necessary for you to be successful. And then all of a sudden it just stops. And so like, what does that come from, right? So step number one, no matter where you are in any of this, is to simply recognize the pattern, right? So you got to like be able to recognize the pattern and be able to identify like, okay, well, this is when you see like, hey, this is the moment in which you notice sales are going up and then something stops. I just want you to recognize the pattern. That's number one. Because when you recognize a pattern, you start to bring awareness to your world around you. You make the unconscious conscious. And when you take the unconscious and you make it conscious, what you're doing is that you're giving yourself the opportunity for power. Now, I've harped on this with, tons of people before, and just like in every lesson that I ever teach, like ultimately you are responsible for your own experience. And if you're not living in alignment and integrity with who you truly are, you're just not going to get the results you want. And what that means is like, if you want something, let's say it's the house, on the lake. I'll just throw my own thing out there. It's like, I want this lake house that's like beautiful. And it's like, oh man, it's like, yeah, like I want that. Right. But like, if you're moving, like as an example, I'll just kind of use myself as the example here. It's like, if I'm moving towards this, but I notice that like when I'm selling and I'm going in this direction and like I'm about to break a threshold and I stop and then I sort of go back. I want you in this step to identify this for yourself of when are those moments? What are the cues? What is the experience that you're having that you start to notice, man, like this is not where I want to be. This is like, like you start to kind of feel that thing start to arise. There's like a trigger in you. And so become aware. When you become aware, you start to create the power. You start to become more sovereign in your own world. Now, number two, what this is kind of all tying into itself. Number two is I want you to name it, because ultimately, what are you naming? Let's start there. You're naming the fear, right? You're naming the fear. I want you to truly name the fear and just like write it out. Like, what is the thing that you are naming? What is the thing that you are afraid of? And I want you to name it. And by naming it, you're actually giving it a bit of powerlessness. You're giving the fear powerlessness. Rather than having that fear having power over you, you are just simply naming it. And maybe you have a fear of success. Maybe you have a fear of being hurt in your relationships. Maybe you have a fear of being chastised in the public eye if you were to be successful and be a public speaker or whatever that thing is. I simply want you to name the fear. And why naming the fear is actually super important is you take control at that point. You take control and you have the power, and you now have the ability to do something with that. Now, in the context of this podcast, we're not going to go over like the actual protocols of like breaking through the programs, but there's absolutely, I forget what number it is. I have to look it up. But going through the SAFE formula and actually taking command of your subconscious mind, those are really powerful techniques. There's so many techniques to take command of your subconscious mind. This is obviously what we do in person at our events, but ultimately what I want you to do is just get awareness around this and name it. Because when you name it, now you're going to be in command. Okay, number 3. Moving from reaction to response. Now, here's the thing, like there's a lot of different ways in which you might notice you want to react. And that reaction is really sort of forms of trauma response. It's ruminating, it's overthinking, it's raging, it's running, it's, and in the entrepreneurial world, that's, I'm going to change plans and I'm going to chase the shiny new object, or I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to, change. Like for me, it's like, I call it ADD brain, but like I'm like all over the place at times, or I'll just like stop and I'll just kind of reiterate back. Or if I really put myself out there, one of the fears and one of the things that would keep showing up for me was my inability to express myself on a global stage, meaning like even doing this podcast was a really difficult thing for me for a really long time because I was afraid of being chastised in the public eye. And then the beauty is that it happened. And I was like, oh yeah, that's their experience. I'm doing me. And when I do me, like it's good, but that's their experience of me based on their own internal dialect. And I was like, that's really interesting. So you'll be amazed. And I've heard this before, fear is a mile wide and an inch deep, meaning that's like you think it's like this horrible thing. And in reality, it's really just like a little bit of water, an inch of water that's a mile wide, but an inch deep. And all you got to do is step into it and just step into it and just step into it. And when you do that, you are going to break through the fear that was once holding on to you. One of the things, and this is a bit of a side note, one of the things that I've done in the past is I've actually created a fear list. And I think this could be its own podcast in and of itself. It's actually really, really good. Is that fear list is writing out all of the things that would actually bring you fear, that will like force you to face your fear. And when you do that, when you face those fears, like you'd be amazed. On my fear list, I'll give an example. 5 minutes of open mic stand-up comedy. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified when I did that. When I got up in front of those people, I was just like, oh my God, like I have no idea what I'm saying. I have no idea what I'm doing. But like I had a couple jokes lined up. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, I bombed. Like I was not good. I'm just going to, you can imagine like, you know, like what that's like. But ultimately it was awesome. Like I got off the stage and I was like, I fucking did it. Like I did it. And that's the thing. Like that's what fear is. It's like, nobody cares, man. Like we only care about ourselves, and we think that we're like, oh my God, everybody's going to think bad about me, or like whatever that thing is. But in reality, it's really not that big of a deal. You know, like I said, it's an inch deep and a mile wide. Okay. So what you're going to do in step 3 is replace the reaction with a response. So you are aware, number 1, you're aware of what the pattern is. Number 2, you've identified what the fear is, you've named it. And now you're going to physically write out what you're going to do differently such that when you do it, it will actually give you the ability to take the next step forward, which sort of lends itself into number 4. And I'll get to that in just a second. But ultimately, you are going to identify what is the response. What is, instead of reacting, because you know that thing, you're going to identify, well, what is the response? I just want you to think about like, well, what's the actual action that you're going to take? So instead of, let's think of a good example here. Instead of stopping, you know, like if you're tired, for instance, and you know you like need to get to the gym and you're like, oh, I'm tired. Just get up, just like literally create something that's so simple that you can't fail. So as an example, like 1 push-up. And you're like, oh, okay, I did 1 push-up. Okay. Can I do 2 push-ups? Yeah, I can do 2 push-ups. Can I do 3 push-ups? Yeah, I can do 3 push-ups. And so you're just going to go through that process and just keep going like a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. And so you've created a mechanism for yourself to take action even when you don't feel like it. Like to truly take action without regard for how you're feeling, because when you're feeling like you do or do not want to do something, and this is very different than intuition. Like intuition is the thing that is guiding you through the path. But ultimately the feeling of like, I don't want to do it because you might have some fear, like that's a very different energy. And you'll know the difference like when you get down into it. So that lends itself into number 4, which is really identifying and honing in on subtle actions that allow you to start to trust yourself. Trust is built in the smallest moments. And I've heard this from Brené Brown and other teachers before. And this is a really powerful tool, because when you start to trust yourself, you know you're going to be able to step into that ocean that's a mile wide and an inch deep. And you're going to be able to step forward, and just keep stepping forward. And ultimately, trust is the ability to do the courageous thing even when you don't feel like it. I'm going to reiterate that. Trust in yourself is the ability to do the courageous thing even when you don't feel like it. And maybe that is write the sales letter and publish. Maybe that is, send your first product, even though you know it's not perfect. Maybe that is, sign the document that puts you into the lease. Although I will say, like, there's a lot of steps before that before you truly sign the lease. I don't want to get too deep into that one. But the point is, really identify, like, what are the small things you can do each day that give yourself trust, right? Like, I'm talking small things. And maybe it's setting up your environment so that you can take away all the external blocks and really just show up. So as an example, like if you want to start running and you want to lose weight and you don't want to keep self-sabotaging yourself with relation to your health, like put your shoes out, put your clothes out, put the things out that matter so that you can take the steps, so that you know that you're going in the right direction. So that is a huge component to your overall well-being, because you start to build trust in yourself. And when you start to build trust in yourself because you're moving towards your fears and through your fears, you're actually going to notice that you're going to entrust yourself. And you're going to start to build confidence. And happiness, like the actual like biological outcome that you're looking for in happiness, is progression. It's moving towards the thing that you want to move towards. It's actually taking action. Did you do the workout today? Did you make those sales calls today? Did you write your wife a love letter today? Whatever that thing is, like, just move in that direction, and you will find that you will actually start to entrust yourself, and you will start to build the building blocks internally that give you context for trust, for confidence, for courage, for all the things that you really want. So these are really, really important. These are really, really powerful. Creating systems. Number 5, creating systems, not pressure. Now, what I love about this is you are going to create simple non-negotiables that you're going to do every single day. And I call this your daily dial. And then I won't go into the nuances of the daily dial too much, but all it is literally just simple systems. As an example, I have a daily system, and I've written about this or spoken about this in another podcast. A daily system that I do every single day to get out of my head and get into my body through my breath, my body, my brain, and my being. And when I do those things, I start to see results. And when I start to see results, like, good things come. Like, that's what I'm looking for, right, in life. So you are going to think about those. Again, you're moving from reaction to response, and you're going in the direction that you actually want to go. So again, like, what are the simple things? But I want you to really start to hone in on, well, what's the systems that I can take every single day, such that when I do, I will make everything else easier or unnecessary. So for me, it's a morning routine. I wake up, I breathe, I move my body, I stretch, I do my meditation, I'll do my gratitude practices, I'll start to get into my being. I'll start to, create the intention for the day. I'll start to do the things that really hone in on who I want to be in this world and how I want to show up. And when I'm doing those things, that's a game changer for me, because I can show up. I can truly show up as the man I want to be, rather than letting the outside world, the external world dictate who I am and how I think and all of these things. That, I believe, like, above all else, has been one of the most powerful elements of my entire life. And again, it's a simple system that I can use every single day. Now, I have a morning routine. I have a starting work routine. So I don't even know if it's around here. I have a notebook, a journal that I just literally write out a few things that I'm like my top 3, what's going to actually happen in the day. What are the things that need to happen, right? Like, so I just like write it all out. I have an end of work day routine, and then I have an evening routine. So I have those 4 routines that I do every single day, so that I know I'm going to get the results that I want. So I don't have to really worry about self-sabotaging patterns, because I know I have systems that I can fall back on. Because we as individuals, whether we know it or not, we're just like running on these servo mechanisms, these programs that we've created for ourselves. And when you can create a program for yourself, and in the beginning, I'll be honest, it was like a little bit hard to break through and actually do those things every single day. But once you make it a habit, everything else is like taken care of for itself. Now, within that, you can create whatever you want. So it's like, let's say you have a morning routine and an evening routine. Just even start with those 2 things, those bookends, you would create so much momentum in your life, because you're going to start to actually get results. And you're like, oh yeah, like when I do these things, I'm going to start seeing this outcome that I'm looking for. And that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. So All this stuff is really simple. It's like just stacking. Just like start with like one thing, maybe start with your health and just start to stack. So again, it's just habit stacking. Don't like try to do all of them all at once. Just do simple things that you can do every single day that, again, just add to the overall well-being of your own soul, and then everything else will take care of itself. Okay. So let's go back to the key takeaways. I'm going to read them from my notes, so I'm going to look away from the camera really quick. So, all right, key takeaways, just so you guys have it. Number one, understand that self-sabotage is just a fear response. It's a subconscious fear response it's rooted in fear. And as soon as you recognize the pattern, number one, recognize the pattern, you'll be in command. You'll start the process of taking the subconscious life and making it conscious so you can take back control. Number two, name your fear. When you do that, it strips away the power. You are going to be in command. Number three, respond, don't react. What are the small actions that you can take in those moments? Again, in those moments, because if you are in command, if you're in conscious awareness of what the reaction is, and you make a new response, as an example, if you, at the end of the day, you want to eat a cookie, but you want to have like healthy habits and you want to lose maybe 30, 40 pounds, instead of reaching for the cake that is going to just be not good for you, reach for something else that's healthier. Or if you just want to like feel something in that moment, recognize that you want to feel something different and like do some push-ups, do something that's like more responsive. I'll give an example. I just bought one of those air bikes and I freaking love it. So like if I feel like, okay, I want to reach for the cookie. Now, to be fair, like I'll have a cookie every once in a while. It's great. But instead of doing the cookie, I'll just jump on the air bike for like 60 seconds and that's it. That's all you need. Okay. Number four, trust is built in the small actions. I'm going to say that one more time. Trust is built in the small actions. When you take small actions towards your success, you are building trust in yourself. Happiness is delivered to you biologically through pursuit, through progression, through growth. That's why growth is so important, because you're literally stimulating dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all the things, all the neurobiochemicals, acetylcholine, GABA, all these things that are positive for your well-being. And those neurochemicals, biochemicals are very reinforcing, especially dopamine. I think we already know about that one. I'll do a whole nother podcast about dopamine. Okay. Number five, create simple systems to create clarity and not overwhelm. Simple systems. I'm talking like a simple morning system, a simple evening system, something that can get you to where you want to go so that you can finally get the results you're looking for. Don't overcomplicate it. Literally, if your entire process is like, I want to work out, I want to be healthy, like 10 push-ups, 20 squats, like if that's it, great, you did it. Like pat yourself on the back. When that starts to get easy, then you progress. Make it so simple you can't fail. One push-up, do it. That's it. One push-up. Do the thing that's going to get the result. If it's sales calls, if like you're a salesman and you need to make cold calls, like one call, just do one call. And then from there, you can like genuinely do an after action review. And I won't get into that too much on this, but an after action review will give you the opportunity to look at it and be like, oh yeah, all right, I could do this better and do this better. And then you're going to do better. You're going to do better. I promise. I promise it gets better. So again, just do the action. You're going to fail. It's going to be a thing. Like, don't worry about it. Okay. Commit. Here's your action plan. Commit to one thing every day. Just commit to one thing every day. When you do that, you will start to stimulate the oxytocin, dopamine, GABA, acetylcholine, all the things that are going to get you to where you want to go. Just commit to one thing every single day, and it will just absolutely take off. Okay. That is how you break through self-sabotage. So again, I'm going to reiterate. I'm going to read my notes again one more time. All right. Again, reflect on where your self-sabotaging patterns are coming from, what they are. You already know what they are. Number two, name your fears. Name the fear within it, because it just takes the power out of the fear. Number three, commit. Move from reaction into response. Number four, build trust in the small actions. And number five, create systems. So when you do those things, you will break through the self-sabotaging patterns. These are honestly the things that helped me break through. And again, when you do that, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. Okay. Guys, this has been a really powerful episode. I'm super pumped. Thank you, number one, for listening. A couple things. If you're watching this on YouTube, what are your patterns? What do you notice? And I'm very curious, especially for the guys that have already done some of the work. What habits have you implemented? And so help everybody out in the comments below. What habits have you implemented into your world that have just completely improved your overall well-being? And when you share with everybody else, then everybody else is going to see, because that's what this is all about. So share with everybody else. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on iTunes, please click like, subscribe, do all the things that help just support the channel to get this information out there to more people. If you found this helpful, please share this with another person, because I know this is going to be very helpful for another person. Please share. Of course, give us a 5-star review on iTunes. That helps more people discover this. And I know this information is really valuable. It's really vital. It's stuff that, man, I was going through it for a long period of time in my life, and I just want to get this information out there. And I know it's not hard. You just got to have the systems, got to have the formulas. So if you guys are really enjoying this stuff, again, please like, subscribe, share, support the channel, do whatever you can. If you are looking to dive deeper and go into our live event, we do have a few spots left for November 1st through the 3rd. That's the Unbreakable Man experience. It's here in Austin. All the details will be shared when you register. The cost of that, I will tell you that right now, it's $3,500 it's a private retreat, a very intense experience. But when I say intense, I mean it's mentally, emotionally, physically intense. I always laugh. I've had guys puke every single time, but it's not bad. I promise. I'm a really good salesman on this one, right? It's very powerful. I'll be honest, man. It's it'll change your life. So if you're feeling like you've been, stuck, self-sabotaging, doing whatever, man, this is the opportunity to step into that. It will I can't guarantee anything, but I just know, it's a known, because I've done it so many times, it'll change your life. So if you got any patterns, any areas of irritation, if you're struggling in your business, if you're struggling with your relationship, you're struggling with your health, any area of irritation, it's going to change your life. So be sure to go to theunbreakableman.com and just hit register or apply. Put your information in there. We'll hop on a call, make sure you're right. You gotta clear you medically and all that stuff. Because again, it's very physically intense and you'll get a lot out of it, man. I'm really pumped. So again, I appreciate you. Please like, subscribe, share. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next episode.